Chris Kelsey here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. We were not that impressed with the Jurassic World film. The previous one, of course, everybody loves Chris Pratt. Everybody loves dinosaurs and clone dinosaurs and big scary stuff and explosions and stuff. But for some reason, the last one didn't really grab us. So we're back for another round. Hopefully this one will right the ship. We're also going to discuss the documentary about Fred Rogers, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And then it's going to be the 5 failed attempts at a franchise. For me, Matt, 5 films that actually were good movies that didn't actually get a franchise. I'm not sure if you were as particular with your list.
No, I'm never as particular as you. So you're the refined taste guy. I'm the general audience kind of guy.
Well, there's a specific reason why I had to do that, and we'll discuss that once we get to the section. But first off, let's start everything up with a clip from Jurassic World.
Do you remember the first time you saw a dinosaur? First time you see them, it's like a miracle. You read about them in books, you see the bones in museums, but you don't really believe it. They're like myths. And then you see the first one alive.
This is not your fault.
But it is.
This one's on me. I showed him the way.
So, Matt, why don't you tell the folks at home, what is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom all about?
All right, so obviously it takes place after the first Jurassic World. So Isla Nublar has been shut off from the world at large, and it turns out that Isla Nublar is home to a volcano. So the dinosaurs that are there, which are obviously the last ones in the world, are threatened with extinction. So Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt's character are hired by the partner of John Hammond from the original Jurassic Park films to go and rescue specimens so that they can keep the dinosaur alive.
Yeah, so Jurassic World is a frustrating film. Fallen Kingdom, also. Let's be specific. The sequel is a frustrating film for me. First off, a lot of decisions here don't make a lot of sense, okay? Particularly for me, just the decision to go back. Why would you... I don't buy any of this, well, we've brought the dinosaurs back, so we have to preserve them. No. All right? We've learned from the 4 previous films, folks, 4, that this always ends poorly every single time. But we keep doing this, and we keep going back. So if there's, listen, just like Malcolm says, basically, as Malcolm, I'm sure who said it, basically, God is sorting this out. Might as well let him or her do it, right? If we're going to have the volcano, they're going to have the volcano. Let's just call it a day.
Right.
There is no way you would get me on a plane or anything to go back to this island to rescue a few of these dinosaurs. It would never happen. And that's part of the issue with this whole film, is that people make decisions that make no sense, that things that people would never, ever do. But it's not terrible. It's better than I expected it to be. It's just as ridiculous as the last one. But unlike the last film, which was focused more on spectacle, director J.A. Boyana, I always want to add a G in there for some reason, Boyanga. It sounds more fun to say. Bayona, smartly, I think, cuts in more suspense and thrills than big action set pieces like there were in the previous film. So I think that is an improvement on the last Jurassic World film. Unfortunately, this is a rock dumb script.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's a few other things, but let's get some of your thoughts before we get rolling, Matt. We see where I've firmly planted my flag, I think, generally. What were your thoughts on Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom?
As this should come as a shock to no one, I'm pretty much agree with you. I think this film is definitely a lot more suspenseful. I mean, in spite of myself, I found myself kind of, as cliched as it is to say, is on the edge of my seat while I watched this film. But it was, like you said, it was stupid. I mean, the whole thing, like, people are getting eaten alive. They, like, I don't know, this movie in the last one really types into a primal fear of mine of getting, I guess, swallowed alive by a giant thing in the ocean. But I digress. But I mean, you would think that people would have gotten over this thing, and they haven't. Nobody has learned anything. This is an alternate universe where everyone is dumb as rocks. And if you just kind of go with that and how it is just completely dumb and it's going to make no sense, maybe you'll have fun with this. But I think you're right. I think I had more fun with this than I did with the last one.
Yeah, I think so. And it's the action set pieces that are in here are done really well. They're not as copious as the last film, which is a benefit. But when they are done, they're done exceptionally well. The escape from the island, and then the, basically, lack for a better term, haunted house set piece for the second half of the film are both done really well. And they're shot really well. There are some really interesting visuals in this thing, too. The volcano, the castle, a bunch of stuff. Just a lot of fun, kind of interesting shots in this thing. The only problem is that the script is really bad, and people don't act like people would normally have done. So let me give you an example. There's a subplot in this film involving what's his name's daughter, the former partner, James Cromwell. He plays Benjamin Lockwood. His granddaughter. Let me be specific. Correct. His granddaughter. They introduce a subplot that they do nothing with.
Right.
It's pointless. They hint around about it. What caused the rift between Lockwood and between Hammond's character, right, in the first film? But they don't really do anything with it, and it's just kind of introduced as this pointless side thing that just doesn't go anywhere. It was just frustrating for me. But I really enjoyed whenever that Indoraptor showed up.
I mean, I guess it is a fun movie, but you really got to shut your brain off for this thing because, you know, Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, they're playing, and you know, Lockwood's granddaughter, they're all playing these like environmentalists, you know, save the dinosaur kind of thing. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you're letting a T-Rex, you're going to bring it to the mainland when it's eating a family of 5 that are you know, camping, and you're directly responsible for the death of a 5-year-old. Maybe you should have let the T-Rex die. I mean, really, this is what I was thinking while I was watching this thing.
Exactly. The impact of the decisions that the characters make in this film is going to result in the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of people.
Yeah, I know. And I'm actually, you know what? Fair enough. I'm actually hoping this thing gets a Jurassic World 3 just because of that final shot.
What of pterodactyls, a Vegas Vacation?
No, of Blue standing over the tract housing of poltergeist somehow, like in California, getting ready to go kill a bunch of people. Because I would really like Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt to really think about what their choices that they've made while they're, you know, all this kind of stuff.
So there is a post-credit scene where pterodactyls land, I think, on the Eiffel Tower replica in Las Vegas.
Oh, great. Okay.
So just to give you listen, I'll give you this. If the third film is badass insane because of the dinosaurs introduced to everybody around into the common world, hence the term Jurassic World, fine. You know what? Good on you. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think it's going to be some schlock exploitative horror film with all these dinosaurs roaming around. Which is the only way you could redeem this trilogy at this point.
Right.
So, and I also want to praise too Ted Levine, who's in this thing. If you don't know who Ted Levine is, he plays the kind of the mercenary who leads getting the dinosaurs off the planet. He's Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. He was in Heat. Great big fat person. But he's one of my favorite, you know, kind of character
actors. Yeah.
So I'm always happy when he shows up. But listen, it's better than I expected it was going to be, but it's still ridiculous.
Yes.
And I think that if we could have polished up that script a little bit, you pepper in some of these really interesting set pieces and visuals. And listen, the performances are okay. They're just handicapped by the script. They really are.
Yeah.
And people just making decisions that make absolutely no sense. But I guess the whole franchise, I guess, technically is really built on that, if you want to really think about it. So.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, they bred pterodactyls. Why are they just leaving the island now? They had no reason to leave the island. They could have left the island at any time. I mean, this is not a franchise for smart people, and we're too smart for this, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and say it. We're too smart for this.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come down on a C+ for Fallen Kingdom.
You know what? God, we are the worst reviewers in the world because I'm going to come up with a C+ too. It was kind of fun, but it is super dumb. Super dumb.
Yeah, I think that's the exact way to put it. I think that'll go on the Blu-ray cover. Fun, but super dumb. They'll cut off the kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly.
No, it'll just be
how Crispy Descalzo.
It'll just be fun, ... and super. The first run.
Hey, if we can get that kind of exposure, I'll take it.
That's right. Speaking of which, we got something coming up in Blu-ray and DVD picks I'm very excited about. But first up, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Are we wrong? Is this the best film since Jurassic Park? Did we really even need Jeff Goldblum in this thing? Because all he does is book in the film.
Yeah, they seriously wasted Dr. Ian Malcolm. Where's the chest? Where's the open chest? I mean, come on, that's what we need. That's what we all came for, and we didn't get it.
Ridiculous. Frustrating film. And the best part is that was it Colin Trevorrow, who directed the first film, which we did not like at all, is coming back for the third one. And I'm assuming he's going to write it as well. So, yay. Shoot us an email, feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, let's talk about what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD this upcoming Tuesday, July 3rd. But first up, here's a little clip of, I think, the big release.
Bye, Mom. Have fun. I will.
Okay.
Bye, Dad.
Remember, stab, turn, drag.
I don't have the knife.
Yes, you do. Check your clutch.
She said.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, sir. I really I'm honored. Oh, intense professional grip. Cheers. Take it easy, big guy. Hey, you guys have a good night too, you know?
Thank you.
See that smirk? What was up with that smirk?
You are intense.
So that's John Cena in Blockers, coming out on Blu-ray and DVD. It's supposed to be actually a pretty funny movie that we did not get a chance to catch up with, Matt, but I think maybe we should. Includes an audio commentary. That's French for commentary. By director Kay Cannon. Yes. Deleted scenes, gag reel, linorama, a whole bunch of other stuff. And here's my favorite part. There is one memorable scene involving copious amounts of projectile vomit. See what cast filmmakers and crew went through to make sure the puke was as authentic as possible. That featurette, of course, being Puke-a-Palooza. So bookmark that one, kids. John Hamm does quite a good star turn, leading man in Beirut. I saw this as part of the Gasparilla International Film Festival. And I thought it was quite good, kind of a political thriller. Also stars Rosamund Pike. But if you're a John Hamm fan, or if you've been a little bit iffy on John Hamm as a leading man, he does some great work in Beirut, and I think it should be checked out. 7 Days in Entebbe. It's a film about the terrorism that leads to the most daring rescue mission ever attempted. A commercial flight is hijacked in 1976 and is diverted to an abandoned terminal at Entebbe Airport in Uganda. The terrified passengers become bargaining chips in a deadly political standoff. Rescued by the Jewish army. What are they called again? I am blanking. Oh, good Lord, that's embarrassing. It's a big.
I can't help you, bro.
It's a big famous story. Anyway, 7 Days in Entebbe is being released. Borg vs. McEnroe, which I also saw at GIF, is the story of the big tennis match between Borg and McEnroe. It's actually pretty good. I rather enjoyed it. And if you're a fan of that big fight at Wimbledon, you should definitely check it out. Where is Kira, starring Michelle Pfeiffer? It tells a story of Kira Johnson, a middle-aged divorcee who moves into her elderly mother's Brooklyn apartment while she looks for work and tries to get back on her feet. When her mother dies suddenly, Kira is left without any support, both emotional and financial, and finds herself with very few options, none of them good. Despite a blossoming affair with a sympathetic neighbor played by Kiefer Sutherland, who has problems of his own, Kara can't accept that her once tidy life has completely fallen apart, which leads her on a risky path of self-destruction that has devastating consequences. Where is Kira? Kirok. No, Jim. I will not leave, Jim. New to Blu-ray as well. I think we excited about this, Matt. This is what I was teasing earlier. Another Wolf Cop film.
What? Are we gonna get a shout out on this one too? We're gonna have to watch it.
We're gonna have to watch it.
Yeah,
We both rather enjoyed the first Wolf Cop film.
We did. It was
so
good.
We're gonna have to check out the second one.
What was our quote on that one? What was our quote? It was something like ridiculous and insane in the best possible way. Quoted, first run.
And some featurettes on the making of, Friends and Foes Meet the Cast, some special effects stuff as well. And then finally, your straight to DVD pick of the week, the Jurassic games. In the near future, 10 death row convicts are forced to compete in a virtual reality game that pits them against dinosaurs and each other. So that's going to suck. What should we be streaming this week, Matt?
Well, obviously, there's only one choice. I mean, Netflix has come out with the big release of the month, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Some people would say, of the two of us, that it's the best Star Wars film ever made. Well, since Empire. You said it was the best one. What did you quantify yourself? Since Empire. Yes. Second only to Empire.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. It is beautiful. It is well shot.
Top 3.
Yeah, top 3. I like how you're you're hedging your bets here a little bit. But you know, it's a very divisive film amongst the fandom. Yeah, it basically if you haven't seen it, check it out. It hurt me. It hurt me deeply. But at the same time, I appreciate it as a film. It is probably the best, most beautiful Star Wars film that's out there. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, definitely. And also, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones both have second seasons that have dropped on Netflix as well. And my notes are all out of order. So Jimmy, God damn it.
We have not fired that guy yet?
No, shortly. Shortly. My notes are all out of order here. So also being released on Blu-ray, son of it. Dietrich and von Sternberg. The Criterion Collection collects basically all the Marlene Dietrich films that were done with director Joseph von Sternberg. Includes Morocco, Dishonored, Shanghai Express, Blonde Venus, The Scarlet Empress, and The Devil is a Woman. Either 2K or 4K restorations of all 6 films with a whole bunch of new features as well. And then Arrow is giving us the complete Sartana. If you're not familiar with Sartana, Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name spawned imitations, variations, and shameless ripoffs keen to emulate his success at the box office. Within months of A Fistful of Dollars release, Giuliano Gemma was playing Ringo, who was then followed by Frank Nero's Django, Tony Anthony's The Stranger, and then finally Gianni Garco's Sartana, each providing their own twist on the Eastwood anti-hero, each of them then subject to their own spate of unofficial sequels, spoofs, and cash-ins. This includes all the Sartana films. If you meet Sartana, pray for death. I am Sartana, your angel of death. Sartana's here. Trade your pistol for a coffin. Have a good funeral, my friend. Sartana will pay. And finally, light the fuse. Sartana is coming. So you can pick up all of those films, Matt. I know you're very excited about that. And now we're all caught up. How exciting is that?
Oh, whew. I was very nervous.
Good times. All right, so let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Won't You Be My Neighbor, the documentary about Fred Rogers and his neighborhood.
We had a director that once said to me, you take all of the elements that make good television and do the exact opposite. You have Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Low production values, simple set, unlikely star. Yet, it worked. Because he was saying something really important.
Love is at the root of everything. All learning, all parenting, all relationships. Love or the lack of it. And what we see and hear on the screen is part of who we become.
So this is filmmaker Morgan Neville's documentary about Fred Rogers, and specifically the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood TV show that was on PBS for decades. He previously did the fantastic film 20 Feet from Stardom. If you haven't seen it, about the classic background singers. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. So this film, Matt, it's a combination, right, of archival clips of interviews with Fred Rogers, clips from this show, and then interviews with the people who knew him best, his family, his co-workers, people who worked on the show, all this stuff. And let me tell you, there can be a challenge with this kind of stuff when you deal, especially when you're dealing with a guy who's basically as sainted, right, as Fred Rogers is, that you're in the danger of deifying the man and making him almost larger than life and making it unable really for you to identify with the subject and really kind of get anything out of it. And I think I can't think of few people who could be a victim of that more so than Fred Rogers. So I have to tell you, man, this thing was just fantastic for me. You know, it moved me in a way that I hadn't been in quite a while. There was a few times where I was moved to tears. It was that powerful. I think part of it may be the current times that we're living in, but it's just truly just a fascinating film to watch, finding about his upbringing and who he was and who he represented himself through the characters and the puppetry work that he would do. And but I think for me the biggest reveal was just how racked he was sometimes with self-doubt. You know, is this going to work? Can I really do this? And just how effortless he seemed to be able to do it all. And also, I don't think I ever truly appreciated how deep the show was and the subject matter he was handling. Because I just watched it as a little kid, right? So I probably didn't appreciate or I really understand it so much, but I'm sure it was making an impact on me. And I was one of those people who would make jokes, you know, about currently in Mr. Rogers. And I love how the documentary kind of tackles that as well. About there's also the rumors like that he was a Navy SEAL, you know, all this other crazy stuff.
Right.
So I think it does a great job just kind of tackling who this guy was and why he was.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know what I expected when I was going in to see this movie. When I saw the trailers for this film, it really hit me in the feels. And like, I think this is a film that we need right now in our current times, just kind of remind everybody what's important, kind of thing. And I'm with you. Like, I had a strange experience of this film because there were times where I didn't know, I wasn't really feeling anything. I was just kind of focused on, you know, just how odd Mr. Rogers really was. Like, he was just a person at a time. He was not like anybody else. But to your point, and guys, of the two of us, I'm the robot here. Like, I try and suppress my emotions as much as possible, but I teared up multiple times in this film. But like, I got choked up watching this thing, and and I say that in the best possible way, because you just see something, especially with what we're dealing with in society now, just somebody who was just so pure as far as his intentions and stuff like that, and how he treated other people, and just the lessons we should have been taking from this thing. I think everybody should go out and watch this thing. You know, and it's even interesting insofar as, like, God, what was his name? Officer
McFeely?
No, not that was Mr. McFeely, the postman. Officer.
Hold on, I got it for you. It's just Clemens. It was Officer Clemens.
Officer Clemens.
That was the guy's name. Francois Clemens. Yeah.
They talked to Officer Clemens, and he's, talking about how he was a black man, and Mr. Rogers felt it was very important to, kind of bring him in as a racial thing. But it also turns out that that Officer Clemens or Mr. Clemens was gay as well, and it took a while for Mr. Rogers to get through that. And I don't think he had a personal problem with it so much as it was that he didn't want it to impact the show, and that was weird to hear.
The cultural landscape at the time,
right? Yeah,
they would have to have fired him, and who knows what else would have happened.
Exactly, and he wanted him to stay on the show, and at the end, when God, that was just so beautiful. I mean, just the fact that You know, he's like, I've wanted you to know this for like years, that I'm okay with the way you are. And the guy just started crying. I'm tearing up right now. Like, I just can't even deal with this shit.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. I mean, I don't know exactly what I expected to see. But yeah, it's a powerful film.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it has to be watched, as I said, especially now. It has some healing ability, or at least helped recenter myself, because I'm working currently through a lot of anger considering what's going on right now, and it helped to recenter the fact that everything should focus and we start from a place of love, which is basically what he was all about, and making people realize that no matter who they are and what they are, that they are loved for who they are and as they are. And it's a beautiful, simple message that, you know, it doesn't hurt to be reminded of every now and then. So I don't know. I absolutely adored this thing. And
I know.
I'm so happy we saw it.
Yeah, me too. And it's weird because, you know, as we all know, Chris is the more political of the two of us, but I'm more leftist leaning and I get upset about all this stuff. But it's like, would you have more success if you kind of came from it at the point of Mr. Rogers had, where he wasn't as apoplectic and angry about all this stuff and just approached it from a place of love and tried to change things that way, as opposed to the way that, you know, some of us do, you know, as we get angry about it and we rant about it on social media. But would that have more of an impact? It's just something to think about, you know, as we kind of go through these difficult times.
You're entirely right. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. I thought it quite touching too when they were, particularly interviewing with the family members. I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think the Clemens was exceptional too. All that stuff.
The guy, the kid in the wheelchair, that killed me. I'm sorry, I keep swearing. It was rough. And then at the end, where he's talking about, just Mr. Rogers was saying, just take a minute of silence and think about somebody you care about, and all those people were sitting there crying. I couldn't take that stuff. It was so tough. It's so good. It's so good, guys. You got to watch this.
I had no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the origin of the 143 thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Oh yeah.
So I've kind of used that my whole life, not realizing where I guess I must have gotten it from. All of these episodes actually are on Amazon Prime right now.
Really?
Once a trailer was out, I started every now and then I'd watch one. If I was cooking, whatever the case may be, I'd just put one on. Sure. And there is a sublime kind of quality to it. You know, not even the nostalgia thing of it. It's more just the purity. I love the interview with Tom Snyder, even though it wasn't very long. I'd like to watch the whole thing. I wonder if it's available on YouTube or something.
Sure.
But asking him, are you square? Are you straight? Like, you know, not alluding to his sexuality, but more, which I guess that Neville used to explore maybe that question. But are you for real?
Right.
Basically what he's asking him. And
right.
And per this documentary, it certainly appears that was the case.
Yeah.
But you should check some of those episodes out, Matt. Like I said, they're all on Amazon Prime right now.
I just may do that. I may pull my daughter close and we can watch these together, and she'll probably lose interest in 5 minutes. But I will sit there and make her watch these things. Darn it.
That's right. So if you've had a chance to see Won't You Be My Neighbor, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, I'm giving this an A. Where are you?
I'm definitely giving it an A. I mean, if anything hits you in the emotional feels like this one did, you got to give it an A.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. So let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear it. All right. Failed franchise attempts. We're going to tell you what the 5, well, maybe 10, depending on how different our lists are.
You're going to be very different.
Yeah, considering, we'll get into explain all of that. So we'll discuss those failed attempts at making a franchise right after this.
Darkness rules the earth. America is in financial ruin. Europe and Asia are on the brink of self-annihilation. Chaos reigns. But like I've always said, there is opportunity in chaos. And so, my brothers, I give you the skull of Tuganda. This skull is one of 3. When all 3 skulls are united, they will produce a force more powerful than any army on Earth.
You've only got the one.
Legend has it that if the skulls are separated, 2 of the skulls will point the way to the 3rd.
Like I said, you only got
Ray, I know the location of the 2nd skull, okay?
So that is from The Phantom, starring Billy Zane, Treat Williams, and of course James Remar is in that film as well. And The Phantom probably stinks. I remember enjoying it when I first saw it. It's kind of campy, and like that scene is kind of a good example of just kind of it knows how ridiculous it is, so it has some fun with it. But I don't know. I always kind of like that. So here's the issue. I did some research, Matt, and when I first suggested this top 5, because we actually had a different one in mind, and then we realized it's going to be really difficult to pull that one together, so we need to give ourselves some more time. I'm not going to say what it is, but I think it'll be a fun one down the road. But so this one, I'm like, what? Didn't wait? Didn't we do this? And sure enough, we did. Episode 184, The Lone Ranger. And also, this is also coming off of John Carter as well. Dave and I did.
Yeah, okay. I was not there, so this doesn't
That's
count.
why I didn't put the kibosh on it.
Right.
You were not there. So this was Dave and I went through, and this was just the 5 worst films that they tried to make a failed franchise attempts. Basically, is all it was.
Okay.
So I added the extra restriction that mine had to actually be pretty good movies that just didn't seem to get any traction.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say what my 5 were from then, and I'll run them down at the end because I don't want to step on your toes at all.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know what? So I'll go first. So we give you the ultimate number 1.
Okay.
All right. So here's my 5th film that it's actually good that failed to create a franchise, and that is Disney's attempt to create Dave Stevens' Rocketeer.
Oh, yeah. Good movie.
Billy Campbell plays the titular Rocketeer. Jennifer Connelly, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen this thing in a long time, but I remember really enjoying it when it came out. It's set back in World War II times, just like the original comic book was. And it's just a heck of a lot of fun that it just didn't catch on. Nobody went to see it. There's no juice for it, and I don't know why.
Right.
But you can pick it up on Blu-ray now. It's at least worth a rental.
Yeah.
It's a great kind of classic superhero design to it, right? And he's got the pilot jacket coat thing, and then very unique helmet and the rocket jetpack, and it's just a lot of kind of fun, wholesome fun. So that's my number 5 is The Rocketeer.
Yeah, The Rocketeer is a good pick. That's a good film. Yeah, I enjoyed that. That doesn't get enough love. All right, so my number 5. So in the wake of Harry Potter and kind of it blowing up and making billions and billions of dollars, everyone was rushing to kind of capitalize on young adult films or kind of mine young adult literature to see what they could get and make films out of. So my number 5 is The Golden Compass, which is a fantastic young adult series. If you haven't read it, it's very, very deep. It's got a lot of philosophy and religious undertones and a lot of things that make you think, but the execution on The Golden Compass is just terrible. And it's really a shame because it is a fantastic series that is a fantastic book series that I really wish had kind of played out a little different, because written by a noted lifelong atheist and kind of criticizing or at least examining religion and kind of all that stuff. So it's a very unusual young adult film, but execution was very, very poor.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 4 then is Russell Mulcahy of Highlander fame. Directed a little film with Alec Baldwin that is a lot better than it has any right to be, and that's The Shadow. Another one that kind of plays like The Phantom, that is set in the past, but has kind of a modern feel and sense to it that also is winking at itself the whole time. I recently picked up the Scream Factory special edition Blu-ray of this because I've been wanting to watch it again. So I loved it as a kid. I had it on VHS and I watched it a bunch of times. And I'm partially terrified that it's horrible now. But I just remember really enjoying The Shadow. Alec Baldwin is a lot of fun in it. It's just a good time. And unfortunately, again, in the shadow of, pardon the pun, of, when Batman was such a monstrous hit, all these studios were grasping to make comic book movies, hence The Phantom, The Rocketeer, and The Shadow. And unfortunately, none of these seem to ever get any traction and go anywhere. But still, it's a lot of fun.
Didn't Alec Baldwin wear a ridiculous fake nose in The Shadow?
Well, that was the point, right? So when he became the Shadow, his face would distort.
Oh, okay.
That was part of what it was.
Yeah. I've seen it once, and that was probably like 30 years ago at this point. So I honestly, which would make me want one when I saw it. So, All right. So my number 4 is a beloved Japanese cartoon, which I don't really understand why it's beloved, but is Speed Racer, directed by the Wachowskis, starring Christina Ricci, and blanking on his name. I really should know this, but
Emil Hirsch.
Yeah, Emil Hirsch. Thank you. Visually, it is a very creative and stunning film, but obviously, just failed to capture the zeitgeist. It just was not something that people were ready for. Not a very cult. Speed Racer in and of itself is very cultish as it is, and what's true of a lot of anime, especially anime for kids. It is very, very repetitive and doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it. So I think that's what suffered. There wasn't as big as an audience as I think people thought there was for this, but otherwise, I mean, it's interesting to watch just because it's a Wachowski film and it's got some great visuals, but it is not a good film by any standard measure.
I haven't seen it. It's a bit of a cult film at this point.
It is, yeah. It is, yeah.
It is. That's all I ever hear about is how stunning the visuals are on that thing.
Oh, they are fantastic. I mean, they really tapped.
Should I watch it?
Yeah, you should check it out. If you've never seen it, you should definitely check it out.
Okay.
You add it to like the 200 films that you haven't seen that you own, so you can just add this to the list.
Like Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, another visually interesting film that I own that I never watched.
I have seen that. Wow, there's something that I've seen that you have not, so that's amazing. Yeah.
My number 3 is David Fincher's adaptation of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, good one. Good one.
Now, it's a good film.
It is.
All right, it is. I think it suffers because the 2009 film by Niels Ardenoplev, so they did the whole trilogy in Sweden, and they're all really good. Though I think they kind of shift. Right. So the first film is more centered on this mystery with this family. And the final 2 films are more centered on Elizabeth Salander. They kind of different. I wish they had been more procedural like the first film was, but still all 3 are really good. Fincher's vision is really not that different. It's still really good and interesting a film. I don't think it's as good as the Swedish version. I just don't. But it's still a really fascinating little film to watch with some striking imagery, and it's a Fincher film through and through. So if you follow his work, you know exactly what that means. Daniel Craig plays the reporter publisher. He's a co-owner, that's right, of the magazine there. Mikael Blomkvist, and then Rooney Mara plays Elizabeth Salander. So they're redoing it. No, I don't know if this is a remake or because it's not Dragon Tattoo. It's a different book in the series. I don't know if it's a relaunch or continuation just with different people. But Fede Alvarez, who did the Evil Dead, the surprisingly good Evil Dead remake, as well as Don't Breathe, is doing the next kind of Dragon Tattoo film. Rooney Mara is not. Nobody's coming back from this film.
Right.
But I am still interested because of Fede Alvarez. I think the guy is great. But still, I think the Fincher-led version, nobody went to see it, really. I mean, it did okay in the box office. It made $230 million, right? Off a $90 million budget. But I feel like that was more people who felt obligated to go see it because they were fans of the books.
Right.
I haven't read any of the books, but I loved the Swedish film series, so I wanted to see it. And it's just, I don't know. It just nobody seemed that jazzed about it. And the second film was never made. So... but it's still worth checking out. That's my number 3.
It is. To digress on that, I think what's a shame about that film is that in every way, other than the actors, it is definitely a superior film in the look and just the way and everything about it. I mean, as far as the budget and just the style of it, but Noomi Rapace is just way better than Rooney Mara. Just all the principal actors. Like if they could have taken those principal actors and have David Fincher shoot the film, that would have been a fantastic freaking film. But I'm with you. I mean, it's a real shame that in almost every way it is superior except for the actors, I think, in my opinion.
And a great score too for the Fincher version by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I've had this weird thing. No, I don't know if you remember this, but USA had a TV show for one season called Touching Evil. It was a U.S. version of a very popular British crime show, starring Jeffrey Donovan of Burn Notice and Sicario, and of course Sicario Soldado, which we'll be talking about next week.
Right.
And Atticus Finch did the music for that as well, and it is some of my favorite music from a television or film ever, and you can't get it anywhere. You can get pieces or bits of some of the stuff, like Nine Inch Nails used the song, is it Warm or Numb? I can't remember. But that was used in the show. And that's a TV series that's not available, unfortunately. I would buy that in a heartbeat if it was available, even digitally, USA.
Yeah.
Just throw it up on iTunes or something. I'll pay you $20-$30 for that, no problem.
Right.
But anyway, I'm digressing. The whole point was I wanted to mention that Fincher's Dragon Tattoo has a really good score by Reznor and Ross as well. That's all. What's your number three?
My number three is John Carter. This is the Disney film where they tried to make a franchise out of the Barsoom series by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who is the man who brought us, among other things, Conan the Barbarian, really a very famous writer of fantasy and horror fiction from the pulp literature era. If you haven't read any of his stuff, check it out. It's actually really good. It's fun and it's very indicative of its time. But basically, they tried to make a huge film franchise out of John Carter, and really nobody knew what the hell was going on with this film. And I'm really surprised they put as much money into it and they tried to make it push it as hard as they did on such an obscure thing. I mean, I think they would have been better off if they had just kind of started over with Conan as opposed to that awful Jason Momoa Conan thing that they had going on. But I mean, they really missed an opportunity, but they decided to go with John Carter, and here we are.
Momoa. That Conan movie is so bad.
So can I tell you something?
Yeah.
So as we know, friend of the show, Rachel Nichols, has texted us many times or responded to my tweets. And the first time that she responded to my tweets is when I was criticizing her hair in Conan the Barbarian.
I did not know this.
Yeah, I did. She said, I didn't hot oil treatment my wigs. And I was like, oh, well, there you go. I said something to the effect that I was very upset. I was very worried about Rachel Nichols' hair because it looked very dry. It had lots of split ends. So there you go.
I should have tagged her in our review of, maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah,
review of the US remake of Inside. Man, what a wasted opportunity that thing was. And to have a happy ending. Well, anyway, my number two is Doug Liman's Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise movie that they tried to rebrand as Live, Die, Repeat later on when it came out on DVD and Blu-ray. I'm telling you, man, Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise film, it's a science fiction action film where there's an alien invasion, right? And something happens to Tom Cruise. He gets doused in this liquid stuff from one of these aliens, and what happens, he's able to reset time. So every time he dies, he wakes up and it's like a day before, 24 hours prior.
Right.
And he's able to relive it and then try and change it and do the things the right way. But he's only got that window. And every time he dies, boom, he's got to start over again. And but he learns each time. And Emily Blunt's in it as well. And it is a lot of fun. I don't understand what happened with this thing, why it wasn't a bigger hit than it was.
Right.
I mean, this could have been a whole franchise, hence why it's on the list. But it's an exceptionally fun science fiction action film starring Tom Cruise. And I think, listen, I'm going to tell you, I think this is better than Minority Report. It's a different film.
That is a bold statement right there.
I think it is. I enjoy this film more than I do Minority Report. I do.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe that's how I should say it. Maybe it's not. I don't know if maybe it's not a better film. It's more enjoyable. I've watched Minority Report twice in my life. I've watched Edge of Tomorrow 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah. It is a tragedy that this thing has a tragedy and a travesty that this thing is not more appreciated than it is, because Edge of Tomorrow is a hell of a lot of fun, but I would say equal level on Minority Report, maybe because I'm more of a nerd than you are, but it is a fantastic film. It is a hell of a lot of fun. You should really check it out if you haven't seen it.
There is, according to Wikipedia, a sequel is in development called Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat. But we'll see. I don't know. I can't imagine that happens.
Well, if I ever become a billionaire, I will fund it myself. So there you go.
All right. Maybe you can fix Justice League for me too.
Okay, I will. Just for you.
The Snyder Cut. I want the Snyder Cut. I want to see the Snyder Cut. No peace. And I want to redo Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I
know that is ridiculous.
I have a team of producers with the money ready to go. Just give us the okay.
I've never been more ashamed to be a nerd in my life than reading some of this stuff. Anyway, number two, and this is going to really stick and show how old Chris and I are. Dick Tracy. This thing was pushed so hard. There was so much merchandising around this. So if you guys don't know, Dick Tracy is kind of like a hard-boiled detective light from comic strip, and I say comic strip as it was in the daily paper. Yes. And it had, he had like these crazy weird villains who were all physically deformed in some way, and this thing was set up to be this huge thing starring Warren Beatty and Madonna, and I think this thing had Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in this film.
Al Pacino's in it. I don't think De Niro is.
De Niro's not
in it. William Forsythe.
Yeah,
I mean, huge. Just James Caan, Catherine O'Hare.
Murderers row of huge film stars at the time, and this thing, I think they even made McDonald's toys of this thing. This is how convinced they were that this thing was going to hit with the 8-year-olds of the 80s, and this thing tanked terribly. I remember we went and saw this on my birthday, however old I was when this came out, and it was just bad. It's just, I don't even know what they were expecting to connect with, but yeah. I don't know what the hell they were thinking as far as Dick Tracy goes.
I've never seen it.
No, you've never seen it? Oh,
no.
You would be in for a real treat if you watched that sucker.
It just looked so bad, and that was back at a time when I wasn't watching as many movies as I do now.
Right.
And I had no interest in seeing it whatsoever. Much like it appeared to everybody else. Right? So
well, I saw it.
My number one. I am not picking this film to cause trouble.
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait to hear what this is.
My number one is a great film that was supposed to be the beginning of a new franchise. Well, maybe I should clarify that. It was a change of direction for a series that John Carpenter had created.
Oh boy.
Halloween 3. Season of the Witch. So, if you're not familiar with Halloween 1 and 2, which I'm sure you are.
Yeah, if you've never listened to the show.
Is a serial killer, and he's killing people. Halloween 3. We're not John. Why did I say John Carpenter? What the hell's wrong with me? It's John Carpenter.
It is John Carpenter.
It is John Carpenter.
You sit down. If you had set Wes Craven down, I would have ended the show immediately. This is the last show Carpenter. We had.
You know, because in my head, no, John Carpenter did The Thing, one of the greatest horror films of all time. He couldn't also have done Halloween. I self-doubted myself. Listen, I've been drinking. So John Carpenter, he realized, listen, there's really nowhere else to go with this Michael Myers character. So let's continue the Halloween franchise, but every year, let's do a different thing. So we're going to do witches this year. And people hated it. And they were wrong. So Halloween 3 is about a warlock, and he makes these special masks, and they distribute them all to everybody, and it kind of melts on your face, and then you die, and then bugs come up out all your ears and nose and mouth, and it's absolutely terrifying. It stars Tom Atkins, classic 80s character actor. And it is just, if you like 80s horror films, this is like top shelf 80s horror. The special effects kind of cheesy. The script's kind of, the whole thing, it just screams 80s. And it is a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. I think going with a different horror genre would have been the way to go instead of these lackluster, dumb, repetitive Michael Myers films we've been getting ever since. You know what? Sprinkle one in every third film. How about that? You get a Michael Myers movie. But then we get like Satanists, and we can get like a Frankenstein's monster thing, or we can get like zombies and then vampires. Think about all the fun stuff we could have gotten over all of these years since 1980. What was it, 3? Horrible decision, people. Y'all suck. You could have got something really fun, but you blew it. And that's why Halloween 3 is my number one good movie. Good movie. That's a failed attempt to launch a franchise.
So, can I say something?
By all means.
I think I speak for all the listener singular of our show that I think you might need to add Halloween 3 to the canon. Put it into. It's nowhere near as good as Thing or The Drive or anything like that. But I called it The Drive, yes. But you talk about Halloween 3 a lot. Yes, you do. You talk about it a lot, my friend.
It's a fun movie.
It is a fun movie. It is a fun movie. And I wouldn't even put it as a great movie that you need to put into the canon, but I think you need to put it on the shelf and dust it off a little bit.
I think that's why I can't put it in the vault, because it's not the Thing. It's not the Thing. It's not Drive. Yeah. It's not Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan type stuff. It's just not.
Yeah.
Listen, when I say it's a good movie, I'm not saying it's critically a good movie. It is just a lot of fun and weird.
Yeah.
Got a fun score by Alan Howarth and John Carpenter. And y'all suck for not going to see it when you were kids and younger like me.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. It
came
out in 1983. Okay.
Just go ahead and buy it. It's from the Scream Factories. 1982. Their best year in movies.
All right. Well, I was...
The Thing, Blade Runner, Halloween 3. What more do you need?
I was 4 years old, so you can't really blame me for not going to see it.
I didn't see it either in the theaters. How old was I? I was 7.
I was 3.
I couldn't have seen it at the time either.
There you go. We are old, Chris. Anyway, my number one is... it couldn't really be anything else. And this is actually a shame. So I'm not a huge fan of DC Comics. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I like Batman. I'm a fan of The Flash. And my other favorite of the true DC Comics heroes is the Green Lantern. And I love the Green Lantern Corps. I'm excited. I'm hoping they do it right for the next one coming up. But that first attempt with Ryan Reynolds in the Green Lantern was an absolute travesty, and it really should have made us all very nervous as to what WB could do with the DC comics properties that they had, because there was nothing good about this. These special effects are cheesy. The acting is not good. The story and the script is not great at all. Just everything about it is just at best mediocre, or terrible. I mean, I guess the one good thing is that Ryan Reynolds met the love of his life in Blake Lively, and they're happily married for a Hollywood power couple, and good for them. I'm happy for those kids, but did they really need to inflict this on the rest of us just so they could find their happiness? And I would argue to say no, that they didn't need to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't know what you go with, but I think going with Parallax right out of the gate was not a good idea.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I know you got to build up for the whole Sinestro thing, but still, it's just not. It's not good. It's not good. It's too bad, because Reynolds, I think, could be a great Hal Jordan. I think he could have been.
Yeah, he's done though. He's done.
Yeah,
done.
No, that guy's never going to work again. His career is over.
Well, no, he's just never going to be a Green Lantern again. Let's just get that straight.
No. Oh God, no.
Although I had a perverse glee when they were talking about maybe bringing him back as Hal Jordan for the DCEU, just to maintain continuity. I think that would be ballsy, and actually, I would get a lot of respect for the DCEU if they did that.
Do you think he would do it?
You know what? I think he would. I think he would do it just as much as he's ragged on it, and especially in Deadpool.
Well, that's why I don't think it'll ever happen. I mean, he did a movie recently where he shoots himself because he accepted that role.
Yeah, I know, but it would be so cool. It would be so cool if he did it. I mean, and it would be cool. I mean, you know what? Ryan Reynolds seems like a cool guy. I mean, granted, I don't know if DC/WB has as much of a sense of humor about it, but I think if they were come to him and like, look, we know we didn't give you the best role. We're gonna put you in the Green Lantern Corps movie. You're gonna star against whoever's gonna be else is gonna be in it, whether it's Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think he could have a good time with that. I think he'd be a game for it. He'd be a sport for it if it was good enough. And I just don't know if they would swallow their pride to actually do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a relatively connected reboot for the Green Lantern Corps film. It's supposed to come out in 2020. It's supposed to be a reboot, so it's not going to happen. But still, I wouldn't mind it. I think it'd be fine. But yeah, I don't think so. So we'll have to think about who they would recast. Carl Urban, maybe? I wouldn't mind that.
Carl Urban is the go-to for every geek role. He's fantastic. Do it.
All right. So I'm going to tell you what my top 5 were back in the day.
Okay.
Episode 184. Number 5 was Daredevil.
Okay.
4, Battlefield Earth.
Ugh, God.
3, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Wow. 2,
Green Lantern.
Mm.
And number 1, probably the most infuriating film in this whole list, is Wild Wild West.
Oh, wow. Those were some pretty good picks.
Thank you.
Good picks. Go ahead.
I was going to say, too, I went back and forth about Tron Legacy. Because great score by Daft Punk. But I don't know how you make a film. You're going to reboot this franchise. Not even a franchise. You're going to reboot this film, right, for a modern age. And
Right.
what do? You just repeat the same mistakes that you did with the first film. By
Right.
making an insipidly dull science fiction film.
Right. Yeah.
How do you make the same mistakes?
It's Disney. I don't know. They hadn't learned their lesson.
It's a visual marvel.
Yeah.
With like I said, a great score, but just it's so boring.
Mm-hmm.
So very boring. Did you have any honorable mentions?
I did. So I'll go a film that I think is maligned. I think it's better than people give it credit for. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I thought that was it had its moments. The A-Team, I think, which is not a good movie, but it's an enjoyable movie. I think we had fun when we watched it. Jonah Hex, which is just bad. It's just fire. Cowboys and Aliens, sticking with the cowboy theme, also bad. Should be set on fire. And wow, another cowboy movie, Lone Ranger, which kicked off this whole thing, which is just also should not exist as far as I'm concerned.
That's too bad. What kills me too about Lone Ranger is that it's the last half hour, 20 minutes is really good.
Yeah.
It's like vintage Disney from like the 60s, like good. You know, when they made this kind of, but the rest of the film is an absolute disaster. All right. Did we miss any? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. What do you think is the worst failed franchise attempt film? Or like me, was a really good film that just didn't seem to gain any traction and turn into a series? Would love to hear your thoughts. Next week, it's going to be Sicario, Day of the Soldado. Second film, TBD, I think at this point. But there's a lot of stuff out there, so we'll figure that out. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Just do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually, you will find us. Go to Apple Podcasts and rate us. I will read any review, though I prefer 3.5 stars and up. Let's go with 4. Cash will be in the mail. That's going to be the big show for this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We're going to take an extended break, and we'll see you soon.
What kinds of things do you do when you're waiting? I sometimes just sit and breathe in and breathe out. In, out. And I just think in